You are listening to The Plot with a Twist, a Burning Hallows production. We are your bookish hosts, Allorah and
Roe.
if you like what you hear, please share, subscribe, and give us a quick review on your podcast app or YouTube. It helps us become visible to other bibliomaniacs. We publish bookish episodes each week on Wednesdays, so be sure to stay tuned for discussions and attitudes that are lit.
When you live in a post-apocalyptic dystopian world, order needs to be kept. Everyone needs to work together to maintain the balance in a world where not only is society different, but so are the people. To keep the peace, what is left of the population is governed by 5 factions, each dedicated to a virtue. You must live and breathe this virtue until you are old enough to decide if you want to stay or go and join another faction that you feel is closer to who you believe you truly are. Or maybe, just maybe, you don't fit into any one place at all. Today, we go back to a trilogy that captured our minds and destroyed our hearts. We go back to talk all things Tris, 4, and Divergent in our spoiler-free and spoilery episode.
Hello.
Oh my gosh, what a morning.
What a day. Technical issues.
Technical issues. I'm not mad about it at all. What was my technical issues?
This is going to bring back some nostalgia.
I was like, damn, I can't remember parts of this book at all or this series.
Oh, I definitely had to refresh my brain.
Yeah, had to do some research big time.
For sure. Okay, so let's start with what is the Divergent series about?
All right, so spoiler free, because this is our spoiler free part. So it's about Beatrice Pryor. She's a young teenage girl who lives in post-war dystopian. It's Chicago, isn't it?
Yes.
Where the people are divided into the 5 factions. And what are the 5 factions, Allorah? Give us some.
Okay, so there's erudite, which is intelligence. There's amity, which is kindness. Dauntless, which is bravery. Candor, truth. And abnegation, selflessness.
So she and everybody else live in this world. They think they're the only ones left. And you live by those 5 factions. So if you're in abnegation, you're selfless. It's you value others before self. Candor, you've always got to tell the truth. So they figure that using these 5 virtues, they can have a peaceful and, I suppose,
idyllic,
but things aren't all as they seem.
Well, also, spoiler free, the catch is you at 16 get to choose where you want to be. However, there's a process by which you are initiated. And if you fail your initiation, you have to go live with the factionless, aka the homeless.
The homeless.
So that is the spoiler free, very condensed summary.
Very condensed, very non-spoilery. All right. So when did you read it?
So I did not read this series until 2015.
Wow.
I was 31 when I read it.
Wow. Well, I read it because they came out around about, I think it was 2011. The first one was out, something like that. So I started in about 2012. So that was when I read it.
So what did you rate?
All the books.
I was going to say, what did you rate it? Well, I bought all the books too.
I rated it 5 stars. I loved it.
I rated it 4 stars. It would have been 5 stars, but the ending, nope. I was like, that lost a whole ass star. Nope. I'm just not having it.
We will discuss that in our spoilery part, but I was just blown away by, I loved all 3 books. I loved the story. I loved the way it developed. I loved everything about it. And then I suppose I got to the ending and I was like, was I upset? Yeah, I was. Did I sit back later and go, damn? Yeah. So I still gave it 5 stars.
Yes, but I will also tell you my issues with the ending that go beyond We'll get there.
We'll get there. And you know what? In all honesty, I admire Veronica Roth for doing that ending because that took freaking guts. That took some guts, if you think about it.
Okay. Spoiler free.
Spoiler free. How did you feel about Veronica Roth's writing?
So, Divergent was actually her debut novel, just for reference. I think as a YA author, it was excellent. Very easy to digest and understand for young adults, but the plot and the characters were complex enough for adults to read it as well.
Yeah, I think it was extremely thought provoking and compelling, her writing, because you just kept wanting to read and there was this hope within you that everything was going to work out okay. Like you got to the end of the first, and she wrote a cliffhanger fabulously.
Yeah.
Like she wrote that cliffhanger in that first book so well that you were just like, what? What do you mean? Yeah, I think she did a brilliant job. And yes, for a debut novel, smacked it out the park.
Yeah. Okay, so there's found family aspects in these books. What do you make of the dynamic between the found family versus the characters' actual families?
For me, I think the whole concept of the factions is an aspect of found family because, as they say in the book, like you live and breathe. It's faction before blood. Like that's actually a saying within the book. So the whole factions themselves are a found family because you don't necessarily stay in the faction you were born into. You can choose to leave.
Correct.
I also loved the dynamic of the found families within the factions.
Yes.
But I thought it was an interesting comparison and shows a true found family relationship because aside from, no, not even Triss, but there is no one perfect family unit. The comparisons between the biological families and the dysfunction and the lies and all the mistrust around those actual biological families and then their families within the factions, I thought she did it brilliantly.
Yeah, I think my dot point on this was she shows there are just as many problems, issues, lies in found families as there are in biological families.
The comparison.
Because the whole part of the point of the entire series is human nature.
Yeah.
So that's human nature.
Yeah, it is. And I think she wrote them. You were rooting for like her found for Triss's found family in Dauntless. You were like rooting for them. But then at the same time, you were kind of, rooting for her mum and dad at the same time. And then you're like, there's issues within her found family with a couple of them. And then there's issues with her brother. And I think she wrote so well in this book. What do you think attracted so many people to this series back in the day?
Okay, so I think it was a two-pronged approach. So when this was published, it was published in the era of YA dystopia. So you had The Hunger Games, The Maze Runner, Ready Player One. They were all coming out at the same time. So that's probably number one. Number two, I think it also came at a time when female main characters in YA who were absolutely badass were just starting to come to the forefront.
Get out of my head.
Hive mind, hive mind.
Oh my God.
Like, this is when women started writing women as not the damsel in distress. Yeah.
So my initial first point, it was set in the era of a dystopian where strong teenage female leads were being written. I think she had a unique take in a dystopian world as well. So it wasn't only the dystopian world, it was also there was a difference in actual people, if that makes sense.
Yes, and we'll get into that a bit later in our spoilery portion.
I think that she came in at the right time with her books. At the right time. And I think with people like Katniss and Triss, you get that empowerment for young female readers.
Absolutely.
And I think that's where a lot of her following and her readers came from, was the empowerment behind those young FMCs.
All right.
Thank you for joining us for the spoiler-free portion of the podcast. If you want to stay for the second half of the podcast where we divulge all those juicy spoilers, please continue to listen after our very brief intermission music plays, or pause us here and come back once you've finished the book. If you want to skip straight ahead to our cocktail recipe, check the show notes of the episode for the cocktail recipe timestamp.
Okay, spoilers. Woo! This is the fun part.
This is the fun part.
This is always the fun part.
All right, Allorah, what is the book really about?
Okay, strap in. Buckle in.
Buckle up, buttercup.
Okay, so I'm going to say the illusion of democracy. So they get to choose. They get to choose which faction they join. But yeah, it's the illusion of choice because there's only so many choices you're allowed to make for a start. And if you fail your initiation, you're out of society completely.
You're homeless, you're factionless, you're nothing.
Also, corrupt institutions.
Yes.
Because there's a lot of corruption going on with the heads of the factions in particular. Not to mention the fact that they, by the end of the series, you learn that they're not alone and they are an experiment. And so they have been being watched all these years.
All that time.
All that time. Yeah. Reflecting on the imperfection of one's own psyche. There's a lot of that in the book, especially with the simulations where their fears, like essentially how they get assessed is by having a test that scares them, and how they react shows which faction they would best be suited towards. And then if you pick Dauntless, you get that times 1,000.
Yeah.
That's the whole initiation, is to scare the living
shit out of you.
Jesus out of you. Yeah, exactly. I think it's also a study in human nature as well as a form of eugenic ideals, right? Yeah. So for those that don't know, eugenics was a pseudoscience before the turn of the century, but it gained a lot of prominence around the First World War and continued until after the Second World War. And it permeated the globe. It was not a German only belief system. It was a worldwide belief system that behaviors could be biological things that could be bred out of people. So things like alcoholism, homelessness, poverty, which is just ludicrous. Like now when you say it out loud, you're just like, okay, how are you going to breed poverty out of people?
Yep.
Maybe we should just ask.
It's more along the lines of how you're going to breed human nature out of humans.
Well, if you want to breed poverty out of humans, let's have Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos share their wealth.
And the many others.
Those two alone could probably feed the entire globe for years.
While you're handing it out, I'll take some.
Yeah, same. Okay, so after being given a test that tells you which faction you stand the most chance succeeding in, kids are given the choice to choose their factions. When Beatrice does her test prior to the choosing, it's revealed that she can fit into multiple factions. And she can't tell anybody this because, like, not even her family, this is considered an abomination. People will kill her if they know. This is not a good thing. So the eugenics themes come in when it's revealed that there is an outside force who has used this city as a genetic experiment. After the nuclear war, they created this prison city divided by factions in an effort to eradicate what they deemed were the human traits that led to the destruction of Earth.
Of the world as we know it.
Right, which is hate, ignorance, cowardice, selfishness, and deception, which would be the opposite of what the factions stand for.
Except the whole entire experiment was based on deception.
The experiment is to see if the genetically dirty can evolve over time to embrace all the positive qualities of humanity at once. And these people are labeled Divergent, which is what our main character actually is. Yeah. What about you?
So Beatrice ends up, she does her test. She realizes that, yes, she can fit into multiple factions, not just one.
Her test results only tell her 3.
Yeah.
Yeah. But even still, 3 is not, you're only supposed to get 1.
You are only supposed to get 1. And that she leaves Abnegation, which is her current faction, for Dauntless. And that some of the faction leaders have more information than anyone else knows of. So as the books go along, we learn that...
You mean all of them?
No, not all of them, because what's her fate? Janine, well, yes, she knows, but they all know different things, right?
Each of the faction leadership is corrupt in a different way.
Yes. But it's Janine who thinks that there's something that needs to be found out, which she is correct. But she's the one that goes to those massive, horrible lengths. And that basically it's Triss and her friends and that set out to uncover the truth.
Yes.
Because you summed it up nicely.
So what did you think of Triss and 4? So 4 is how he introduces himself in the book until you find out his name is Tobias.
Tobias
Eaton.
I shipped them hard, hey?
Yeah, me too.
So shipped them hard.
Yeah, me too. I love them together.
I did. I thought they were fantastic. Yes. So E4 is, eventually we find out he's Tobias Eaton. He is Marcus Eaton's son. Marcus is one of the leaders of Abnegation.
He is the leader of Abnegation.
The leader.
He's on the council. He's not the head of.
No, he's not. He doesn't rule.
Marcus is the head of.
And 4, you find out why he's named 4, as in Fore. That's his actual name.
Four, dude.
Oh, that's what I meant. You know what I meant. I'm having a bad morning. You know this.
Not Fore as in foreskin.
Not 4. Oh, fuck my life. You know what? Do you want to just do this one by yourself? I'm going to tap out.
Did you
I
hear
tap
me?
out, man.
Did you hear me?
What did you say?
I said his name is 4, like the number 9. 4 is foreskin.
Hey, this is a YA book. Keep it clean, love. I'm telling
you to act like a fucking professional. Get it together.
I'm trying. Okay. It's not going to work. No, all right. I'm here.
Are you?
Anyway, all right. 4 as in FOUR.
Yes. The number.
The number. The number. You find out why he's taking that name. Tell me to be professional. Okay. It's a very serious subject. Stop it. I loved their dynamic. You're not helping. I loved their dynamic. I loved the way he didn't coddle her.
Yeah.
He didn't coddle her. And we used to get that a lot with books and our FMCs. The MMC would coddle. She was, as you were saying in the first part, it was still that damsel in distress way of writing. But with Triss and 4, he didn't coddle her. And he was probably one of the first grumpy assholes. He was an asshole. Let's be honest. He wasn't nice to her, but he had that charisma that we all love, especially in dark romance, where he's just like, no, sorry, whatever.
When did you say these came out? 2011?
2011 was the first one.
Yeah, he's like 2011 Zayden, but minus magical powers.
Yes, that's a very good description. Minus the magical powers and probably not as violent.
Mm, he's pretty
No,
violent.
he's violent, but he's not.
He's violent because he has to be.
So Zayden, though. But I think Zayden's darker.
Mm.
Zayden's that darker violence where he's just like, screw it.
Let's do it.
Let's just off everybody. Where I think 4 was very, I don't want to, but I will. But yeah, I shipped him hard.
I thought they were very well written, flawed characters. Like both of them were heavily flawed. If you want to make a comparison to the Hunger Games, which I did because I thought it was interesting, Triss is someone who, once she realizes what she is and what's going on, and she starts becoming aware, she actually embraces rebellion, where Katniss is very resistant to being the face of a rebellion, if you will. And Peeta is somebody who is extremely in touch with his feelings, and he's super intelligent in the way that he goes about rebelling. Where 4, I thought, was a mix of Gale and Peeta. Like he rages against the injustices of the faction system, but he's smart in how he moves through the rebellion at the same time.
I was going to say, once you mentioned that of the two, I probably preferred Triss, like her character, over Katniss. Don't get me wrong, I still love Katniss. I still love the Hunger Games. But if you were comparing FMCs, because Triss embraced everything and she just went, screw it, I'm doing this. I'm not going to let people be treated like this. I did embrace her character more. And I must admit, I did like 4 over the other 2 more. But the books are on an even par. Like I loved both.
Yeah, I don't think that you can compare them.
No. What did you think of the found families within this series? Now that we can go into a little bit more discussion with characters and people involved and a little bit of plot, what did you reckon?
Okay, so I went into Triss's found family first. So I loved Christina, who becomes her bestie.
Yeah.
She's originally from Candor. And I think, like, even though he's a dick, even Peter, like Christina and Peter both, because they were raised in Candor, they're brutally honest. They have no filter.
Zero.
And it just comes out. And everybody else is like, Jesus Christ. You know what I mean? And they're like, what?
Yeah. And they're just kind of like, what's your problem? Yeah.
But I also think that Christina is a beautiful foil to Triss when she first comes to Dauntless. So Triss has been taught to never want for herself. And Christina calls it like it is, pushing Triss to be honest with herself, to want to do well, to want for herself, to want to succeed.
Yeah.
And Christina is also one of the only characters in the books that I found capable of forgiveness. Real forgiveness.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah. Because Triss kills
Will,
who is Christina's boyfriend, and she ends up confessing to it. And Christina has to go through this whole grief, resentment, anger. Process, but in the end she comes to terms with it because there was nothing else Triss
could have done.
Yeah.
I think the found families within the series, as I said, we said in the first part, she wrote them so well. She had so many that there were some parts that broke your heart, like that part in Dauntless where she finally tops the leaderboard. Triss finally tops the leaderboard. She's at the top. And then you get, I think it was Peter, some other girl, and fucking Al, who like kidnap her in the middle of the night and are just about ready to throw her over the edge. And the fact that when it's all happening and you're reading this and you're like, oh my God, you know it's Peter. It's Peter, right?
Okay, that's Peter, not Peter, like the Hunger Games. Just so everybody knows.
That's my accent. Deal with it. Okay, it's Peter. Anyway, you know it's him. But when you find out, like, I think she ends up, as I said, this was so long ago that I read it, but she pulls off his face mask, doesn't she?
That's the movie. So in the book, what actually happens, they blindfold her.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, I knew something was pulled off.
They blindfold her.
Yeah.
And something else that was left out of the movie that I thought was, again, massively important, taken out of the movie for censorship sake, but she gets saved in that kidnapping.
So
and it wasn't even graphic, so I don't know why they cut it out.
Wasn't. Yeah, but at the time they made the movie was made in 2014.
Yeah, anyway, she gets felt up.
Yeah.
Against her will.
And the fact that you then find out that it's Al, because there's a group, so there's like, ends up being 4 of them. It was Triss, Christina, Will, and Al, who end up making like a little fan family of their own. And when that gutted me, like the betrayal that she would have felt from that was just, oh, I was like, oh, she had to deal with, she's lived in abnegation her whole life. And let's be honest, abnegation, while I can understand the line that abnegation takes to put others before self, it's rather extreme when you haven't looked in the mirror for like, I don't know, 4 or 5 months or whatever it is. You get to finally see your face because your mum's cutting your hair or something. But the fact that she had to deal with a family where everything else came before them, and she wasn't overly close with her brother, and she wasn't overly close with her parents, they didn't have this tight-knit family unit. She gets that in Dauntless, and then he just betrays her because he's pissed that she got on the top of the leaderboard. What a douchebag.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think now that we can get into it, between her and 4 and even everyone that comes after that. So in Insurgent and Allegiant, there's found family aspects throughout the whole thing.
Yes. Let's talk about key characters throughout the whole series and what we think of them.
You probably got way more than I do.
I have a buttload.
All right. Why don't you name them and you can like say your little piece, and then I'll jump in with my bits on those ones because then you'll end up having more than me anyway.
Okay. So the first thing that I want to say before we get into individual characters here is characters are the crux of this entire series, because there are definitely characters that you come to despise, but there's also characters you come to love. But by the end of the series, you realize that it's not as cut and dry as Candor, who is represented between a black and a white scale, thinks it is. Everyone can kill, everyone can lie, everyone can steal, deceive, inflict pain, cruelty, be selfish, and everyone can do all the opposite of all of those things.
I also like the fact that there was a few people in this that had, I think, good redemption arcs. I feel there was a couple that had some really good redemption arcs.
Yes.
Take it away.
Okay. So yes and no. I'll agree to a certain extent. So let's start with Marcus Eaton.
Oh, we're going Marcus first.
So he is Tobias Eaton 4. He is his dad. Yep. He is the leader of abnegation. He abuses his son in childhood.
Yeah, and his wife.
And his wife. And we're talking physical.
Yeah.
Like domestic violence. That leads her to leave.
Yes.
And she leaves her kid with an abusive man she knows.
We're not talking about her yet. We're talking about Marcus. So for me, I've got here, Marcus is the douchebag.
Yeah, no, like Even though he had somewhat of a redemption arc in the
Yes.
series, I just don't forgive him.
Oh, of course not. There's no forgiveness.
When it comes to abusing children, no, nope.
Oh, there's no forgiveness for Marcus. He does eventually try and help to do the right thing throughout the series, as we know. I've got it here because he wasn't part of the Dauntless and Erudite plot to wipe out abnegation.
Well, no, because he was the leader of it.
Yeah. So he was just hiding information that they wanted and was just in general a douchebag.
Yes, agreed.
Like in general, he was just a bad person.
He was just, yeah, an asshole.
Yeah. Yeah, pretty much. All right, who's next?
Janine Matthews.
So she is the leader of Erudite.
Yep.
She is our initial big bad.
Yes.
She is the initial big bad and wants to take over and get all the answers that she thinks abnegation's got. She is a piece of work. She tortures factionless. She tortures Triss and the gang. She absolutely lost her crap when everything didn't go her way, which was so funny to read. I was like, sucks to be you, man. I think Janine's character, because she's the big bad throughout books 1 and 2, I think her character shows flaws when we are so focused on one thing. So it shows that what can happen if you solely focus on an outcome that you think you've got. Because when she gets that outcome, so when everything comes to light, she's kind of left reeling, going, wait, what? No, that's wrong.
I can add to that too, because
Go for it.
There's another facet of her that I think motivated her. So, first of all, she views those who are divergent as a threat to the order of society, right?
Yep.
So, she wants to keep this faction system in place. The divergents, if they can go to any faction, if they can fit anywhere, that's not okay because you're only supposed to have one purpose.
Yeah.
That all being said, I think she was also motivated by the fact that she and Triss's dad, Andrew Pryor, were childhood friends until he left Erudite to go to abnegation to marry Triss's mother.
Natalie.
I think there's a
little bit of
jealousy there. A little bit of,
you took my man.
Right. So now I'm going to take your kids.
I'm just going to take everything from you. She was horrible.
Well, she successfully took Caleb.
She did. I think that was very hard, though.
And then when it's revealed that Triss is divergent, oh, well, now I'm going to kill your other kid.
Yeah.
Okay, next up, Evelyn Johnson.
Where's my Evelyn? There she is. All right, so I have her. She's the leader of the factionless and Four's mum, who we initially think is dead. What we don't know is that Four knows she's alive and Four's spoken to her. But she's the leader of the factionless. She's the one that Four and Triss go to when like everything hits the fan for, I suppose, manpower. They need a leader and they go to her. Triss doesn't trust her one bit at all.
Because again, she's like Xaden's mother.
Yep.
Who just
walked
left.
off on her kid. So, yes, we have her. And she's also very much, I got really annoyed with the whole part where she was like, oh, my son. Oh, my son. Do you remember that? Like when she was talking throughout the book and she's very much like, she wanted to, Four was allowed to come in and listen into all their planning meetings, but Triss was kept out of it. And I'm like, you can't make up for walking out, darling. Sorry. But no.
Yeah, I wrote, she's the same as Coin from the Hunger Games.
They are very similar, aren't they?
Yeah, so she wants to overthrow the faction system and be installed as its new leader. But I could never get over the fact that she left her kid with a man she knew was violent.
Her reasoning was that She didn't want to take him out and have him live on the streets and be homeless. That was her reasoning. Was it a good reason? No. Was it the right thing to do? No. I suppose what it shows is a little bit of like your battered wife syndrome, where there's nothing that they feel that they can do. And that at times, they would honestly think that their children would be better off if they just left. Maybe if they left, then their husband wouldn't be like that anymore, which we all know is just rubbish. But yes, as parents, I don't know. It doesn't compute for me. Can't get the understanding. I also, however, she does have a little bit of a redemption arc.
Yeah, she does, but that's a hard one for me to get behind.
And I think it was a hard one for Ford to get behind too, because he still wasn't, his relationship with his mother wasn't great. All the way into the end. Even at the end, his relationship with her wasn't great. He let her into his life. He had a relationship with her, but it wasn't a dependent relationship where he was like, this is my mum and I need her. He was just like, yeah, you're my mum.
And he also calls her Evelyn.
Because, well, he's pissed. And rightfully so, right? He's angry. You left me there. All right, who's your next one?
Eric. So he's the initiate trainer for Dauntless. He is cruel and sadistic.
A grade A-hole.
And he holds a grudge against 4 because 4 came first in their initiate class. So he goes out of his way to torment 4, whether it's directly or by targeting Triss or by
indirectly.
Yeah. He's something else.
That's exactly what I've got written here. He is something else. He also reminds me very much of like a Jack Barlow.
Yeah. Fucking Eric.
I was just going to say fucking Eric.
But also Peter did that to me too.
Yeah. Yeah, he does. He does. Yeah, so I've got here that Eric is just, he's an a-hole because he's always second best. And that just makes him mad.
Yeah.
And he initially doesn't like Triss purely because she's from Abnegation. And he's already in on the plan. And there's the other thing that probably pisses him off. 4 is ahead of him. He's technically ranked above him in Dauntless. He won their initiation. He was the top student, blah, blah, blah. So outwardly, 4 is the better one. But then Eric is the one who's already in on the plan between Erudite and Dauntless. So he's probably going, I'm in on this, yet everyone thinks he's awesome.
Yeah.
He's just an a-hole. Great a-hole.
Then I've got David. So he doesn't come in until Allegiant. So the third book. Basically responsible for the genetically damaged.
Yes.
He presents himself as a benevolent leader who's looking after these people, rescuing people from the fringe, all of this sort of thing. But then when people find out what the Bureau has done over the years in studying them, in creating this city as an experiment and watching them their whole lives, and
Chicago wasn't the first one. It was just the longest running experiment.
Yes. So basically he decides he's going to release this memory serum into the entire city to make everyone forget who they are, what their names are, so they can start again.
Wipe the slate clean and start it all over again.
Yeah. And he's the big bad.
In the last one.
In the last book, yes. Overarchingly, he's the big bad.
He's the biggest bad.
Right.
Throughout the whole 3 books, because he is the reason that they are in this experiment. He has been running these experiments. And Chicago, everything else, all the other ones have bolted. They've gone because they destroyed each other. It was Chicago who was the longest running experiment. It was his pride and joy. It was his claim to fame. It was his everything until Triss decided to bring it all down around him. So yeah, he wants to just get rid of everybody.
Okay, my next one is Joanna Reyes. So while she's mostly an ally, she does do something underhanded. She is the leader of Amity, kindness faction. And in order to keep peace in her faction, their food is laced with drugs to keep everyone
She
happy.
dopes them.
Yeah, they're all doped. And it's actually one of my favorite parts in the whole series when Tris and Peter get into a fight and they give her the serum, except they overdose her on the serum. Do you remember that?
Yeah, I remember.
And she goes to Ford. She's like, oh, like all loopy shit. And he's like, what the fuck
He's like,
happened to you?
what is wrong with you?
That was the best.
Who's next?
Jack Kang. So he's the leader of Candor.
Oh, yeah.
He helps Erudite interrogate Triss.
Yes.
With the truth serum, even though
she can fight it off.
And he decides, so even though the truth serum doesn't really work on her, she makes her own decision to admit to shooting Will during that.
I think it kind of works on her. She has to give a truth, but she can kind of go, well, I'm not just going to blurt out that I'm divergent and this is what's been happening. So, and she chooses to give the truth of, I shot Will.
Also, he ends up deciding that he will do anything and everything to protect Candor, even if it means sacrificing every Divergent. And he ends up siding with Janine and her dauntless zombies, because essentially Janine creates a dauntless army that is controlled by a serum.
Yeah.
Okay, next up is Peter. Peter Hayes. They made him way too palatable in the movies, because in the books,
he's a jerk.
He's evil, he's cruel, he's violent, he's aggressive. So he was born Candor.
He's an out-and-out bully.
Yes, he is a bully. He was born in Candor, but chooses Dauntless. He targets Triss, calls her a stiff. He's the one that essays her during the kidnapping before they push her over the railing. He ends up stabbing Edward in the eye with a butter knife.
Yep.
Leaving Edward with one eye.
One eye.
But what's interesting though is Peter's one of the characters that I had the hardest time with, because by Insurgent, he ends up saving Triss's life, because instead of giving her a death serum, he gives her a paralytic to make it look like she's dead so that they can escape. And then by Allegiant, he wants this memory serum to come out into the city because he does not like himself. He doesn't like that he's cruel. He doesn't like the things he's done. So he wants his own memory erased so that he doesn't remember who
everything
he
he's
is.
Done. Yeah. And how bad he is.
Caleb.
Out of all the characters,
Caleb
pissed him the most.
Yeah.
So Caleb Pryor is Triss's older brother, but they are Irish twins, so they're born in the same year. So he's not a full year older than her. He is a complete and utter douchebag. He ends up working so he also leaves Abnegation and his parents, and he goes to Erudite. You get that he's standoffish at the start. He's kind of, there's no like affection from this dude. So he goes to Erudite. When everything comes crashing down around Triss, she goes to her brother for help. And that douchebag betrays her and hands her over to Janine on a silver platter.
I think Caleb's character was important because it shows what happens when you are so brainwashed by a system that you literally believe in the tenets of the system to the letter. So he was putting faction before blood, as he was taught to do. So while he's an asshole, he ends up having a trial, being found guilty, and is facing execution, and four saves him anyway. Even after all of that, I just felt bad because I thought this poor kid has been so brainwashed that he cannot think for himself. Like he believes everything the institution of government that exists tells him.
I disagree.
No. He can't think for himself.
He does think for himself.
But he
does. He wants to work his way up the chain. He wants to work with Janine. He is full of his own self-importance. He's self-righteousness is just beyond comprehension. And he doesn't care. He's the nicer version of Peter without all the violence. He's self-serving because he thinks abnegation is stupid. He thinks Dauntless are idiots. He is a mini Janine, and she sees that. And yes, she may manipulate him slightly, but she sees it and she molds him. She's like his little clay.
But that's what I'm saying. People that can be molded, people like that, they don't have a sense of autonomy. They don't have a sense of being. They don't have the ability to think for themselves. They follow the hive mind. The hive that he joined was erudite.
He stood there and watched as she tortured his sister.
And he was taught faction before blood, and he believed it.
No.
Yeah.
No.
This is where you and I feel differently.
I can't stand his character. I hate him. I absolutely hated him.
Okay, those are all the characters I had. Who else you got?
Okay, so I also went into a little bit about Natalie Pryor, Triss's mum.
Yeah.
So she was originally from Dauntless, but originally she was actually from outside the experiment. They put her in as a teenager. So she knows everything. I loved her mum for the fact that she loved her children. She loved her husband, and she did lead a great life in abnegation. But at the same time, I was a little bit angry at her because I was like, you could have prepared your daughter. You could have helped her way before anything went down, and you didn't. So I'm umming and ahhing about her, but I think she plays a massive role in Triss's development.
But could she have really warned her children with the surveillance they were under that she knew they were under?
They managed to get her in. And erudite managed
Wait a minute. What do you mean get her in?
As in, so outside, she managed to get in from outside.
No, I understand that. But would she have been able to warn her children without David knowing?
I think so. Because she would be aware of everything. The cameras, the surveillance, all that kind of stuff. She knows about it. I think she might have been able to find a way.
I don't know because we're not the books don't really detail where every camera is.
No,
so that city could be teeming. Like there could be no blind spots unless you're in a toilet or something. I mean, I don't know.
I also had, so obviously Andrew Pryor. So Triss's father. I loved him.
Yeah, he was such a soft guy.
He was such a good man.
Yeah.
And but also at the same time, quite brave. He did what he could, even though it wasn't who he really was to stand up and fight. He did it anyway for his kids. So I adored him. I also did a little bit on Christina and Will.
Yeah, I talked about them a little bit earlier.
But yeah, and that was, aside from Triss and 4, I didn't have any others.
What did you think of the idea of the factions?
I think it was a plot point that moved the story along at a great pace because of the fact that their whole entire being, their whole entire life was focused around these factions, and it carried on throughout all 3 of the books. This whole what faction you're from, how you think, how you were raised, to what kind of faction you want to go into. It was all throughout all three books. And I think it never got repetitive or overdone or, oh my God, I don't care anymore. It kept great pace throughout the whole entire series, I feel.
So I think it's deeper than that. I think it is commentary as to what Marxist, communist, fascist societies look like or governments look like while giving the illusion of democracy.
Yes.
I'm thinking back to the days of Lenin here, like in Russia. Everyone is equal and everyone has their place, but there's no real room for you to be an individual. You can't stand out. Everybody blends in. Doesn't matter which faction you choose.
Stay in your lane. Yeah, it's a very much a book series that shows you that, yes, very similar to The Hunger Games, is you stay in your lane. If you are in amnesty, you're in amnesty. You're nice regardless. You can never get angry. You can never get annoyed at anyone.
Well, they're drugged.
Well, yes. Well, yes, they are drugged.
But that's also part of what I'm saying here as well. Like each faction, aside from abnegation, I don't know about abnegation. I can't remember, but Candor has a truth serum. Amity has a peace serum that they lace their food with. Dauntless is just crazy as shit and runs on adrenaline and knows what else.
I think it also shows a lot that with a faction, so within a faction like this or within these things, that you have to fully embrace that virtue or that culture or whatever you want to call it, because we see, especially with Candor and probably Erudite, Candor, they're just like, as we said before, the truth just spills right out their mouth. And too bad if it's so harsh, you're kind of standing there going, what was that? Like, that was needless. And I think that's what these factions show, is that they are following this to the letter of the law, so much so that they're needlessly cruel.
Because anything can become a detriment.
Yes. And it's a detriment if you're not, and we see this a lot with Candor, if you're not that brutally honest, right? Then you're not fully embracing it. You need to be completely and utterly honest. And that's not life. Being completely and utterly brutally honest will end up backfiring eventually.
Yes, and for me, that happened around my mid-20s.
That's a learning curve, and I'll be completely honest here. I will be completely candid. I was very much someone who was, and I still am, based on honesty. If you're not honest, you're going to have issues with me. But sometimes when you're asked for opinions, sugarcoating them isn't a bad idea.
Well, it's the way that you deliver it.
For me, I think it was a bit of both. And it was a steep learning curve through my 20s and probably to my mid-30s. I got better in my 30s. But to the point in my 30s, I was very much, if someone asked for my opinion, I'm like, do you really want it? You need to really want my opinion, because you may not like what you hear. And I'm giving you an out now. Don't ask me if you don't want to know what I actually think.
Yeah.
And I'm still a lot like that today. However, I'm a little bit nicer about the delivery. I must admit, I'm nicer about the deliveries.
Well, actually, my learning curve came when I was brutally honest about something, and my mother called me out for it. And she said, there's a difference between being brutally honest for the sake of telling the truth and being brutally honest with the intention, whether conscious or subconscious, that you're hurting someone.
To be mean.
Yeah. And that stuck with me. And so now I'm like, all right, like
a little bit of think before you speak.
A little bit of filter, not filter, but you know what I mean? Like, don't just open your mouth and let words start shooting out.
Like you sugarcoat it a little bit, where there's parts throughout the book, especially with, and that was a steep learning curve for Christina. because she was like just spewing all this stuff. And in Dauntless, they were like, are you done? We don't care about your candor. Shut up.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think it was written, as I said, and the fact that it went through all 3 books, it wasn't just in one or kind of, and then it kind of dwindled off towards the end of it and a different storyline came into play. Like this whole entire series is about this experiment based on these 5 factions, the 5 virtues. How relatable is the theory of the factions to our society at large?
I think it's insane. I think it's insane to believe that you can biologically breed out behavior as if it was a biological problem to solve. As long as human nature exists, there will be positive and negative emotions and motivations for everyone. Period.
I think it's just, so we still get this up until today. It shows that as a society, we still try, but can't put people into one box, one place, one role. This whole stay in your lane thing, or, you know, you're from over there, so therefore that's how you are, and nothing else changes that.
You know what, though? On that note, I'm just going to say, with your one box theory here, so why is it that you say we still try to put people in a box, right? Well, if you have a partner, if you have kids or both, how many hats do you got to wear? So how many boxes do you have to?
Exactly. But when you think about it, right, tell me the hat that always comes first. So I'm married with 4 kids. What's the hat that is always first?
You're a mum.
Yeah, but the second you pop that kid out or take on the responsibility of a child, that's your hat. You're a chauffeur, you're a cook, you are at their beck and call. You are mum, and that is your little box now, and you do that. And if you do that, people go, why don't you have a career?
I feel like that would be an advent calendar
full of alcohol.
No shit.
Yeah, that's the box that you're put in. The second you take on the responsibility for a child or pop out a kid, that's it. That's your box. There's your box, and you stay in it. Don't come out of it. Or if you're a single woman who has decided that they don't want to have kids, now you're a working person, and that's all you are. That's all you're ever going to be. If you're, and this goes back to, it brings in things like, well, if you're a lesbian, then that's the box that you go in. You're a lesbian. Boom, there's your box. You stay.
Well, yeah, because society does love labels, don't they?
That's right. And those labels are rubbish.
Yeah, I agree.
Because it never works. I'm a mum, but before I was a mum, right, for 20-something years, I was just me. So I can still be just me and mum.
And awesome.
Thanks. That's because we are awesome.
Okay. So what were some of your favorite moments in the series?
So, as I said, I cannot remember this series. I need to do a reread, I feel. But I have 2 favorite ones, and these are all from the first book. Okay. And these are the ones that when I think of the Divergent series, these are the ones that pop to mind. And it is when Triss leaves the hospital in Dauntless to go and play Capture the Flag. She's been told by Christina that she's done. They're kicking her out because she's too weak. She got the shit beaten out of her and she's done. And she goes, yeah, nah, sorry. No, I'm not done.
Don't think so, Tim.
I'm not done. Sorry. You can say that I'm done. That's good for you. But I'm not done. And I thought that showed true strength of character for me. My other one is the zip line. The first time she does the zip line.
Oh, yeah.
I thought that was cool. Good. And then I couldn't remember anymore.
Okay, I've got several. So the choosing ceremony in the first
Really?
book. Yeah. Because I was on the edge of my seat. I'm like, what's she going to pick? What's she going to do? Like, she fits into all these different ones. Like, is she going to stay? Is she going to go? I don't know. So I thought that was really good. Her initiation into Dauntless, period, and all the crazy shit that they had to do, I thought was really well written.
Yep.
When Tobias shows Tris his tattoos,
Oh, yeah.
I loved that. And anything to do with Tris and Tobias, period, was
Yeah.
really well done. And you know what's funny too is that they fight a lot, a lot. They do not agree. Like you said, he doesn't coddle her. So he's always pushing her, challenging her.
And she doesn't let him get away with things. So he's older. He's technically more experienced. He's been in Dauntless longer.
Also, when you find out why 4 is named 4 and he pulls Tris into his fearscape to teach her how to think like a Dauntless.
Yep.
So 4 is called 4 because he has 4 fears.
Only 4.
Only 4.
And I think it's so good because of the fact that that's the lowest anyone's ever had, the lowest amount of fears.
Yeah. I can name them
Really?
Yeah.
Well, I know one's his dad.
Fear of heights, fear of enclosed spaces, fear of his father.
Yeah.
And having to kill an innocent.
I found it interesting. You know what? One of my other favorite moments in this was the moment that 4 finds out he's not actually divergent.
Yeah, that was hard.
It was hard for him, but the fact that Tris was just like, so what? And I went, exactly, so what? You're almost there. So yes, technically you're not divergent, but here's the thing. No, he's not divergent. But he had the courage to leave abnegation and his father, go out on his own and join Dauntless.
Yeah. I also had the overdose on the peace serum. That was one of my favorites in the second book because she acts like a total loop-de-loo. That's pretty funny. Tris versus Janine, like all that.
I was on the edge of my seat during that.
Yeah. Also, Tris's continuous internal struggle to want to live. And the final simulation where Tris goes to access Janine's lab and has to fight herself.
Yeah.
And then sees the message from Edith Pryor.
Yes. It was a grandmother, wasn't it?
I think so.
Yeah. All right. Name at most 3 things they did wrong in the movies.
I'll go first.
You go first.
So in the movies, Tris is a badass with guns.
Yes.
Ammunition, all of that, munitions, whatever. So in the books, after she shoots Will, she can't pick up a gun. Like she struggles to even hold a gun. And in the movie, she's shooting everybody.
Everybody in the
We fam. Anyway. Anyways. All right, you go.
So this is just a broad blanket statement, and it mainly focuses on the second and third movies, especially that third one. Now, there is making a movie based on a book, and then there is going so far off script that everybody's sitting there going, what? Where the are we? How could you go so far off script on that third movie? What the was that?
Yeah, there were no bubbles. There were no
What was that?
spaceships. There was none of that. There was an airplane. There was never an airplane crash.
I 100% would rewatch Twilight, that brain numbing thing over and over again, than watch that damn third movie ever.
I was pissed off that there wasn't an ending to the movies. There was no ending.
You screwed it up royally. And I think
why you didn't finish it.
Well, I think it was a combination of things. I think that Flora and Triss, so the actors that played both of those, had other projects.
Yeah.
And I think the reception of that third movie was very, very bad. Who would want to do that last movie with the direction that the third one headed in?
And my other one was the fact that they left out the part about how Amity was drugged. Like the whole faction was drugged. Like that was, I think, really important to know.
Yeah.
That is part of the whole theme of the books. Like the government of this city is controlling
everyone
in a different format. Okay.
Nice.
The ending. What are your thoughts and feelings?
Okay, I'm going to go first because you're just going to unload later. All right. So if you've stuck with this far, you have obviously read the Divergent trilogy. And you know that in the end, this is your last chance. If you have not read it, switch off. But in the end, you know that Triss dies. What happens in the end is that, yes, it's David, isn't it? David is out to blanket Chicago in the serum that's going to make them forget everything, and he's going to restart the experiment. And Triss is like, no. Triss and the gang are like, we can't let this happen. So they devise a plan to stop it. However, where this serum, like where they need to go to fix this situation is booby-trapped. And basically, the person that goes in there is not walking out again. They will die. Because the way it works is that those people that aren't divergent cannot fight off these serums. They affect them way more than they affect a divergent. And we know that through Triss's experience in the book. Triss's brother gets voluntold that he's going to be the one that's going to go in and save everybody but die in the process. And it's all set up. It's all going ahead. Everything's going to plan until Triss and Caleb get to this room where Caleb's going to go in. And Triss has a moment of clarity, I feel, in the fact that she realizes that if she sends her brother in there to die knowing that he will die, then she is no better than he was when he handed her over to Janine. And that is not who. She's not going to make her brother. Your face is hilarious. She's not going to make her brother commit suicide, basically, to save everybody else, because he's 100% voluntold, you are doing this. You are the asshole. You are the one that's the worst person on the planet because of what you did. I think her epiphany was on par for Triss. I think, wow, we're really going to disagree, aren't we? I think that she is a person, and it is a reflection of the beautiful human nature where we go, no, I'm not going to have someone sacrifice themselves, especially when they don't want to. And this is my brother. And even though he pissed me off and I'm so angry at him, he's still my brother. So Triss goes in and everything, she ends up fighting off the death serum. And what kills her is a gunshot from David. But when I initially read the book, I was like, you did what now? Oh my God, how could you do that? How could you? Like, what's going to happen to 4? Oh my God, this is just... You're off the FMC. You're off the main character, the protagonist. Yeah, nobody does that. How could you do that? And then I thought about it. And I went, damn, girl. Well done. Am I sad that she doesn't get her happily ever after with 4? Yes. Do I think the ending was phenomenal? Yes. And go.
Everybody knows I yeeted said book when I got to the end. I was pissed off. Okay. I understand why she did what she did, but for me, I thought it was a bit too martyr. Like, it's giving Jesus Seriously. Second of all,
Yeah, but Jesus didn't ask Judas to go first. Jesus wasn't like, hey, Judas, you're going on that cross. And then go at the last minute, go, oh, no, hang on, I changed my mind.
he should have. I guess Triss is just a better human than I am because I would absolutely have not done that.
I would
I'd
have
have
took his
like,
ass in.
peace, have a
Peace
good
out.
time. I'm going back to safety.
I'll catch you on the flip side.
You have done way too many things. You literally, I almost died. And the dude that bullied the crap out of me is the one who saved my life, not you. Like, what? Like, no. There's no forgiveness for that. No, sorry. Nope. And Triss doesn't forgive, like, for example, Evelyn or Marcus.
They're not her brother.
Doesn't matter.
It
I don't.
does. He's her brother. So, yes, if Evelyn was standing there, she'd be like, bye. Or Mark or
Yes.
Janine, bye.
Yeah, but it's for his mother and father.
Yeah, but she hates us, so it doesn't matter. But we're talking about how
But-
Triss feels at the time. So, yes, she doesn't like Force. Four was more than happy for Caleb to get done. He was like, yep, cool.
Yeah.
The same way that Triss would have been okay if it was Evelyn. I'm saying that this was true to Triss's character development. She always thought outside the box. She always thought differently than everybody else. And she realized that sending her brother in to die, I reckon if he'd have volunteered, I reckon if he'd have gone, you know what, I'm going to do this. But he didn't. What happened was he was like, because they were all discussing it, going, well, what are we going to do? Someone needs to go in there. And he's like, well, I guess it's going to be me, isn't it? I know you're all thinking it. They were all thinking it. We were all thinking it. We were all reading it going, Caleb, put your hand up. We were all, not even Peter. No one was like, hey, Peter can go. You're not telling me we weren't all sitting there going, Caleb, hey, you there? You're up, buddy. He goes,
So
he basically,
but that's the thing though, right? So she, throughout this book, she has this whole found family and all of these people to help her. And all of these people who wrong her, including Peter. And she could have easily been like, well, I can't sacrifice my brother, but I can definitely sacrifice you. And you don't even want to remember what you've done because you know you're a piece of shit. So you're going.
but Caleb would do it, where Peter would be like, no, I don't want to remember, but I still want to live. For Triss, blood is thicker than water. So while everyone else was faction before blood, Triss was blood is thicker than water.
I don't care.
Are you just sad because she didn't get her happily ever after? She didn't get her HEA and you're like, that's ridiculous.
I read the books and I was like, I read 3 friggin' books for this.
Yes. Do you think that's what this is? You're like, I've read 3 books. I am invested in this character. And you have just, and that's what I said in the opening. It captured our minds, but it destroyed our hearts. I 100% cried.
Oh, yeah.
I cried. I was like, are you kidding? I finished the book and I went, I don't have the words. How could you do this? How could you not give her happily ever after everything she's been through? How could you not? But then I was like, but she saved the day. Because had she not been shot, she would have been alive. She fought off that serum. She was not going to die. She was sick, yes. She was struggling, yes. She was in a lot of pain, absolutely. But she wasn't going to die. And what killed her was the gunshot from David. So she 100% could have saved everybody and still lived a happily ever after. And Veronica went, nah, sorry about that. And I give credit where credit is due because that was a ballsy move by the author. Because how many people would just hate the series after that?
Yeah, I'm actually just curious because I don't know.
I think it was done brilliantly and very gutsy move by Veronica. And yes, it gutted me. Yes, I was so sad. But was damn memorable.
So this is Veronica Roth in an Entertainment
Interview.
Weekly article. She says, in Allegiant, Triss was still struggling with her beliefs about selflessness. But this time she was wondering whether Caleb, when he volunteered to go on the one-way mission to the weapons lab, was motivated by love or guilt. She struggled with whether it was ethical to let Caleb's sacrifice happen throughout the rest of the book. When Triss dies in the weapons lab, it's because her journey is complete and she's making a sacrifice for the right reasons, as opposed to Caleb, or as opposed to her younger self in Insurgent. At the end, she had a conversation with David where she told him her beliefs about sacrifice, that it should come from love, strength, and necessity. That was a Triss who knew what she believed about selflessness, who knew who she was, who knew what she wanted to do. Roth concluded her post by writing, I will miss her, that Triss voice in my head, but I'm so proud of her strength.
Yep, that's what I've been saying. It was true to character development.
I was wondering if that ending wasn't the first ending she wrote. You know what I mean? I wonder if she went back and was like, no, I'm going to do the crazy thing.
Maybe 100%, probably. Like, let's be honest. She's not really going to be like, hey, I'll just off the main character that everyone's fallen in love with. That'll be a good idea. She probably had it in her head and then went, no, that's dumb. And then it popped back in and she was like, no, I can't do that. And then it probably kept popping back in and she was like, maybe I can.
I'm trying to think, and I cannot think of another series of books, or any book for that matter, where the protagonist is offed
at the end.
Not off the top of my head.
I think I have read one though.
But it's so rare. It's gutsy, and it's a gamble.
It's a massive gamble. Because, yes, everyone could just be like, you did what? No, sorry, I'm done. It is a very bold move. Very, very bold. But I feel it paid off. And as I said, I do feel that it is true to her character development. Throughout the whole series, she develops into this understanding, compassionate character who, while they are brave and they are honest and they want peace, I think the last thing that she embraced was abnegation. She embraced dauntless. She embraced candor. She embraced erudite with intelligence. And she embraced amity because she wanted peace. The last thing she embraced was abnegation, was others before self. It's well-rounded. Sucky, but well-rounded.
Okay, what is your last question?
I added a little one and I forgot to tell you before we started this. But
it's all right. I'll think on my feet.
Well, it was really a yes or no answer.
Okay.
Have you read the short stories on 4?
No, I haven't.
I have. Now, the only reason I put that there is because I loved the ending. I loved this series. It was fantastic. And I was so excited to read 4's books. And I feel personally, they just fell a little
short.
Flat. Yeah, just a little short. I don't know if you're going to read them. You do know who he ends up with.
Yep, I do. Yeah.
Yes,
this is the spoiler portion.
So he ends up with Christina. I didn't like that. Not that I don't want him with anyone. And in saying that, while thinking about it, I kind of went, well, it makes sense, right? Because Will is gone and he was Christina's. And Triss is gone. And she was Tobias's. So makes sense that they end up together. And I just feel like maybe that relationship it's more of a relationship of convenience than a relationship of love and want.
It's a relationship of trauma bonded. Well, it's what it is.
And I was kind of like, I'd be happy with him to be with anybody else. Everybody else, but that just didn't land for me. It probably landed for a lot of people. Although, in saying that, I did actually meet 2 ladies I was in Kmart the other day looking for a book for my daughter for school because she's got to read this book. And I ran into these 2 ladies and we just started chatting because they're kind of like us, right? One of them was very much like you. So she was standing there holding like a rom-com kind of book. I think it was one of the Elsie Silvers or something. I can't remember. Anyway, the other one was a bit like me, where she was like, yeah, I'll read anything. I'll pretty much read anything. Head towards the dark. And I'm like, hey, that's me. But we were just talking books, and then somehow we all ran into each other in QBD. I know, okay. Right? Anyway, because they were talking about, so she made her buy in Kmart. She made her buy Divergent. She was like, you have to read this. Branch out, right, from your rom-coms and your romance and read this. Divergent is amazing. And we were having a bit of a conversation again, and she was like, have you read the short stories? And I have. And she was like, yeah. And I was like, yeah, I was the same. But I felt for a lot of people, maybe Christina and Four or Tobias and Christina would have been a nice, well-rounded ending for everybody. But for me, I was just like, I liked the other ones. Like they weren't as good as the books, but the information you got, and the little flashbacks from when he was with his dad and he was a scared little boy, like they were horrible and they hurt your heart. So they were good, but they just didn't hit like the books did. And then yes, that last one where I suppose it was more of a little bit of a backstory into Four, and then a closing out for everybody else.
Yeah. I might think about it. We'll see.
Wow. Anyway, it's that time again.
Today's cocktail is brought to you by fellowshipofthedrink.com, and it's an ode to the faction of bravery. It's called the Dauntless Maker. And here's what you'll need and how to make it if you're brave enough. 1 shot of peach schnapps, 1 can of blueberry Red Bull.
Oh, no.
And 1 shot of Fireball whiskey. So what you're going to do is you're going to pour the shot of peach schnapps into a beer glass that you've poured the Red Bull into. So blueberry Red Bull, then your peach schnapps. Then you're going to take your Fireball shot and you're going to drop it into the beer glass and chug it all at once.
So like a Jaeger bomb.
It's like an Irish car bomb, only not.
Yeah, like only a Jaeger bomb.
Peach schnapps, Red Bull, and Fireball.
That would probably taste okay, but you lose me at the Red Bull. Nah.
That's the adrenaline.
I'd have a heart attack now. I'd be like,
yeah, but this is this is the Dauntless Maker. So you got to have some adrenaline and some fire.
I'm more of a let's sit on the couch in my PJs than Dauntless. Maybe in my younger days, but now I'm more of a, look, it's 7:00, bra off, PJs on, let's go.
Yeah, kids will do that to you.
Yeah, well. A huge thank you to all the bibliomaniacs out there listening. Please stop by our Instagram page, The Plot with a Twist, and check out the link tree in our bio, where you can find links to us across the internet, including all our social media. Most recently, our videos are up on YouTube, website, shop, and Facebook group. Give us a like or a follow so that you can stay up to date with episode releases and product launches from our book merch shop. We appreciate your support from the bottom of our hearts. Every little bit counts. Tune in next week for another all-new bookish episode full of magic, mayhem, and maybe just a little bit of smut. Until then, keep reading.